Should be live. Let's see. Okay. So if you're watching, if you could let us know if you can hear us, that would be really great. That would be extremely helpful. Let's see here. Okay. Awesome. So if you're watching, you can just let us know that you can hear us. That would be tremendous. We don't have to. Hey, Lauren and Jason, I know you're watching. If you could just let us know that you can hear us, that would be really great. Oh, there we go, Lauren. Okay. You can hear me.
That's good. Testing.
Can y'all hear Lakeisha? Okay, I think we're good. Perfect. Well, sorry about the technical difficulties, everyone. This is a live show, and things happen. Okay, so Lauren can definitely hear us. We're all good. All right, so let's enough with the you know the back and forth. Let's get into exercise. Um, so we're going back to Dr. Chatterjee. So we're making exercise work for us. And so, Lakeisha, in case you haven't been, following along to what we've been doing this show, basically what he talks about is stress dose. How there are these micro stress doses that happen. Those are kind of like little annoying things that happen every day that sort of build up. And then you have the macro stress doses, which are kind of like the traumatic events that people have. And so what he talks about is that you get to a certain stress threshold, and it's different for everyone depending on whether you've had these macro stress doses or not. And all of that leads up to, and if you go over that stress threshold, then you're in trouble. Then your emotions get the best of you, and the like. So that's what he's talking about. And so the question is, at this point in time, is whether exercise is a good thing, or can it be a bad thing when it comes to stress?
Yeah.
So in terms of what you've seen in your practice, and I know it's sort of the conventional wisdom that exercise is always stress reducing. What is your perspective on that?
Obviously, I believe that exercise is good for maintenance and for stress in general. But in our profession, I think that exercise is great for the brain and training the mind. It's good to strengthen that muscle, to challenge yourself, and also, to make sure that you're in the best shape for your clients. Things have moderation that can be dangerous. So, you wake up one day and decide you're going to do it, gotten off the couch in months, that can be dangerous. Sometimes we overinflate our abilities based on things we've done in the past and may not, be realistic with what we're doing currently, and go too hard. And in doing that can be dangerous. But otherwise, I think, it's great to challenge yourself both physically and intellectually.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about a little bit about the science behind it, according to Dr. Chatterjee. And he's all about talking about how the information that you're sending to your body. So when your exercise is done in the right dose, it actually sends your brain that thriving. So it does things like bringing down levels of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, reduces inflammation, and it can help with a variety of like psychological conditions like depression, anxiety. And this is what I found pretty interesting, is that when we're out, it puts us in that fight or flight mode. But
Mm-hmm.
we're not, as lawyers, we don't have an outlet for that sort of thing. Because our work is intellectual. We're sitting at a computer or we're arguing in court. I mean, I guess arguing in court or doing a trial, that probably is, some physical exertion, but it's not like we're, working outside or working construction, something that's physically taxing where we can release some of that physical, or that some of that, stress.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's true, but I think it's also important to incorporate it in your day. So, for example, I stand up times when I work, and I feel really, really stuck on something, or if I'm really overwhelmed, I'll go for a run just for that mental clarity. In my experience, releasing that extra bit of energy, that clarity for my brain, I believe the science supports what you described here. For COVID, I actually saw this tip that I've incorporated to make sure that I'm washing my hands for the appropriate amount of time. I do squats while I wash my hands. If I do 20 squats, then, it's good for my body, good for my mind. It breaks up the day a bit, and I've done at least 25 seconds.
Wow.
Because I'm for sure meeting 20 doing 3 squats.
I love that. That's a really great tip, actually. I mean, and one other thing that we talked about last week was sort of like the, this book was written before COVID, and his thing is,
Yeah.
well, you don't want to you don't want to use, like, he's not anti-antibiotics or that sort of thing, but like limit the use. So he would say limit the use of, hand sanitizer and that sort of thing. But now with everything we're going through, I mean, I went to church on Sunday, and they must have, they wanted to lather me in the stuff,
Yeah, though, I have purchased gloves in bulk to reduce that. So if you can store anywhere in public, I have on gloves for sure, and I keep them in my car.
Wow, that's really, really smart, actually.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's keep going on here. So regular physical activity teaches our stress response system to more efficiently, and it means our stress response can operate more efficiently when we're being attacked by those stress doses. And then also, exercise helps us to reorganize our brain so it's more resistant to stress, which I found pretty interesting. And then apparently, according to Dr. Chatterjee at least, exercise also may protect our chromosomes from the effects of stress. So we won't be as old, apparently, the more we exercise. But here's the real question I wanted to ask Lakeisha, because I'm not one who's over exercising. Is there such a thing as over exercising?
My primary care physician thought that I were exercising. I don't know if she was correct, but I'll defer to her because she's my physician. But at the time, I was doing CrossFit at least 5 days a week, and it was summer. So obviously it's very hot here in Atlanta. And it started to, we don't know if it's a direct correlation, but the symptom where I began to get sick was my blood pressure had become pretty low. And so she thought because of that, I needed to just moderate things based on the temperature and the intensity of the workouts. So I did reduce it at the time to add in, a couple of days of rest or a couple of days of yoga instead of, CrossFit 5 days a week. That in the chapter, I thought that experience in my life where my doctor said, hey, you're doing too much.
Yeah. And what I found interesting too is in terms of overexercising, I think, at least for me, so like typically if this was life, I referee hockey on the side, so I would be on the ice and, that would be my thing and my real form of exercise. But as I've, tried to keep up with my physical activity during COVID, I've tried a couple of different things, but I found that maybe this is just, I don't know, logical, but when I tried something that was extremely taxing, so I tried, I can't think of what it's called. Oh, insanity workout. And I just remember I was doing okay. And then we got to this point where it was like a jump squat. So you had to jump and then bring your knees to your chest.
Uh-huh.
And I saw them do it on the TV and I was like, there's no way. And I did a few of them and I was like, no, that's just not for me. So I think, and then of course, because, that was too much, I, never did it again. So there seems to be some credence to the fact that, you can overdo it or at least scare yourself into
I'd say that might be more mental though, Dave. 'Cause I remember the first time I tried to do a jump on this really high plyometric box, I was thinking, I'm gonna fall, I can't do that, and all these things, And I realized over time it was really more mental than physical. And actually, I don't like distance running, but I only run races periodically for the mental challenge rather than the physical one because I get bored. I'm like, why am I still running? This is silly. This is dumb. I could have done 20 sprints by now rather than running X number of miles. But just to challenge myself intellectually, I do races a couple times a year, for kicks.
Yeah, no, that's pretty fun. Yeah, I've done one race in my life. I did a 5K through, so my local community does a marathon and 5K, and I actually initially signed up for the half marathon and then decided, yeah, no, I'm just going to do the 5K because I started training and stopped for whatever reason. So, but I think a lot of it is in your head, right? I mean, a lot of it is, you got to get over, your fears, your, I can't do it mentality.
Yeah, I agree 100%. In the chapter, he talked about Bikram Yoga, and that actually was one of the things that I was intimidated by for years. And I'm a yogi, but for some reason, this really, really intimidated me because, I think the temperature is 105 degrees in the room, and the session is longer than usual. And when I finally went and ripped the Band-Aid, I was like, it was intense. I will say it was still very difficult, but the feeling of accomplishment I had after going for a couple of sessions was just really awesome. But I was intimidated, so I'm pretty sure that was more so a mental block than a physical block.
So if for those of you who are watching, if you have an exercise tip or you've done any sort of crazy adventurous exercise, please let us know in the comments. And so Bikram Yoga, it's like what, you're in a very hot room and you're doing, is it like a specific yoga routine that you're doing?
So I may butcher some of the details, but the gist of it is you do a sequence of 23 or 26 poses in the same order. And the room is 105 degrees. So typically if I'm going to do Bikram routine, drink at least a gallon of water because you're going to be drenched.
Wow.
And they tell you the first day that you're likely going to get lightheaded, but it's okay. Trust your body. You're going to be fine. Just go into child's pose, let your body recover, but don't go out of the room to have that big drop in temperature. But the idea of being in a room and doing intense poses for, I think it's 90 minutes, 75 to 90 minutes, depending on the studio you choose. The idea of it was just like insane to me. But I did it and enjoyed it a whole lot. Places that do variations of it, where you'll do 75 degrees in the room, like warm yoga rather than true Bikram. But the impact for your body, I've heard remarkable things for your joints.
Yeah, I imagine it's true. And I think in the chapter, Dr. Chatterjee talks about that heat actually is a stress buster.
Absolutely, because it's the burning nature, right?
Sorry, go ahead.
Did he mention like the burning properties?
Yeah, which I mean, like, so, obviously I go to when I've gone to a gym, my gym isn't open now because COVID, but going like to a sauna or something like that, you think more just like, I thought of more of a, like a weight loss thing, like you have extra water and you want to lose it, or, the steam. Again, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a scientist, but it just, from my own head, that's what it sounded like. But actually to find out that it actually has stress relieving properties, and he talks about like doing yoga in the sauna, which my sauna in my gym is way too small to do yoga there. But something like Bikram Yoga actually sounds like that kind of puts the two things together.
Yeah, and you know what? I haven't tried this yet, but one thing I intend to do within the next couple of weeks is get some fresh eucalyptus and just hang it over the shower so that when it steams, I can have the.
Huh. That's very cool. No, I love that. And so do you have, so Dr. Chatterjee talks about sort of like you're getting to a certain stress threshold, and exercise where you think you are in your, if you've had, and I guess he's more talking about like the night before. So if you've had a very stressful day, and or maybe you drank the night before, or something that sort of gets you to that stress threshold. And he recommends something like doing a more restorative practice like yoga, instead of maybe like, taking a long run on the treadmill. And I'm sure like everyone is different, but do you see that sort of has it been your experience that it's important to change your routine based on sort of like how you're feeling in the moment?
1,000%. So I change my routine based on the moment, based on my schedule, based on my body. I mean, I really think it's important to listen to your body and know what you need. So if you're tired, sometimes you power through. Sometimes you just gotta go to sleep, and that's important. I'll give you an example. If I lift heavy weights the first half of the week, then I don't choose power yoga because that's still also into cardio. But I would do restorative yoga to reset, let my body appreciate what we've done for the week. And then also, we're sitting upright most of the time. Just the idea of, changes the blood flow within your body, and that's also a good way to reset your body.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point because just as lawyers, where we do so much sitting, a good just listening to your body and figuring out what you need, seems to be extremely important point. But finding the time is hard too. How do you find time to exercise, when you have a, busy day?
Honestly, it's difficult sometimes. Sometimes like during COVID, I realized I'm exhausted, especially now in most of the day. So normally when I'm private practice, I would work out after work. I joined the gym in my building. But now I have switched my cardio in the morning, like first thing. And if I don't do it first thing in the morning, it's difficult. So sometimes I'll use this time to do cardio. Sometimes, again, listening to your body, I realize I need some relaxation shiftness somewhere. So I'll like do yoga, which is where you sit in the poses for a longer period. So rather than do one pose for a couple seconds, you may sit in 3 to 5 minutes to really give your body and your tissue time to connect. I just try different things, Sometimes what used to work for you may not serve you anymore, and that's okay, and find an accountability partner to help you try something different.
That's extremely important. Where did you learn yoga? Do you have like a yoga studio that you go to, or like I've heard there's a lot of YouTube channels as well.
I don't really like yoga unless I'm in a. Let me stop. I don't like yoga very much through the screen. I like being connected with others. So typically I go to a live studio. If you want to be cost effective rather than just join one studio, I'll like try Groupon or something and just buy sometimes like 4 or 5 different passes per studio to kind of mix up my routine. Because as you may know, yoga is an umbrella term. So there's so many different types you can do, at least in the Atlanta market, I haven't found one studio that's great at everything. When I lived in Charlotte, I didn't have that problem. But here it's hard to find a studio that's like great for yin and great for sword and great for power. But if you can, just mix it up and keep being unique and fresh, you can also, it's interesting, just to try something different.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the variety is important because I find myself getting bored very easily, and I think part of it is just like I didn't want to do it anymore. But when I was preparing for that, like I said, half marathon and then 5K, part of it was like I just didn't. It wasn't for me, like.
Same.
I was out. I was, either running on the treadmill or running outside by myself. Like it was not fun at all. And I had a lot of people find it relaxing, but I did not.
Yeah, I don't like running, but I do it just because I know I don't like it. And maybe I'm just a weird person that has challenges, but I'm comfortable with sprints, but I get bored just like you just mentioned. It's like, but because I know there's a mental block just to stretch myself, I'll do it anyway.
It's like a competition style almost. You're proving that you can do it even if your body is telling you no, which is probably
it's usually never my body. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying my body physically can do it, and I'd imagine yours can too. But your mind is telling yourself that you can't.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big thing, I think, in general. All right, so let's some sign where you may be exercising, and I've had this a few times when I doing just a very intense workout. One thing is you do an exercise so hard that you don't do it the next day, which I kind of felt like totally true when I was in the insanity for a couple of days. I was just like, yeah, that was just rough. Other things, it'll be sleep at night after a workout, sleeping more than your norm and still feeling exhausted. waking up with your heart racing the day after your
Mm-hmm.
workout, feeling exhausted for the rest of the day following a workout, simple or moody when you've exercised a little bit, and then frequently getting ill. All of those may be a sign that you're exercising a little bit too much. And I've definitely felt that. I'm just a person, but I feel like sometimes after very intense exercise, it just like it feels you go through a little bit of that was a good workout, but then you're so close to the day that it's pretty tough.
Yeah. I had used to do like 6 a.m. I was like physically exhausted by like 11.
The thing that he talks about is this heart rate variability, which I found really fascinating. So he says it's sort of like the people tend to think that your actually beats like the same amount of time, which I sort of thought. I didn't know, but actually it's important that you have this. Let me just share my screen so I can get it. So I can get it exactly right. It really should. You really should have a high HRV, so this high level or amount of time or a difference in time between the beats, right? So you can see in this slide, the low HRV is basically that the same time basically between beats, but actually you want a high variability, so differences between the beats. Yeah. And when you have low HRV, he's linked to things like actually like all causes of mortality, heart disease, and then you also can lower your HRV due to stress, infections, temperature, inflammation. It indicates that our bodies are in a stress.
Yeah.
So, have you heard about this concept before? Because I hadn't.
No, I thought that was interesting and probably did more research. You know, there's the basis of it is really, really going really hard and then slowing down and having that variation rather than doing anything at a steady scale. So I'm kind of curious if there's a correlation between the two, but the way he phrased it within the chapter, I wasn't sure, but it reminded me of workouts where you have and then you bring your heart like 45 seconds to 60 seconds and back up.
Dr. Chatterjee is from the UK, so sometimes his vocabulary is different from what we use in the US. But the other sort of goes along with that is the he talked about to figure out whether or not you have a high or low heart beat or heart rate variability. These two apps, it seemed like really interesting, although they took like vastly different approaches. And so I looked at them a little bit before today. The one app was sort of, it seemed like you had to buy this like $100 machine that actually you stick your finger into, and it I guess it takes your heart rate, right? And then the other app was.
For the listeners,
sorry, go ahead.
For the listeners, can you name the app so they can follow along?
Oh, absolutely. They are. Here, I'll. HRV for training. The other one is Elite AP. The one is sort of seemed very like high tech and scientific. The other one was literally, this is a thing, but the app uses the flashlight on your phone to take your heart rate, and it's something to determine your heart rate variability based on the however your phone can take your heart rate. And I know it's a thing, at least, that your phone can take your heart rate, because for a while I was tracking my sleep, and part of the component was you wake up the next day and it takes your heart rate. I guess I didn't realize it was doing HRV. But yeah, I mean, you literally, the flashlight pulses and it can take your heart rate, which I found, fascinating.
That's pretty cool. I did used to use my list or when of I noticed patterns where I became the night, and at least for me, I adjust the temperature, but I didn't think to consider perhaps the heart rate thing.
Yeah, and apparently that helps. Again, new to me, so I'm learning along with everyone here. But apparently, the HRV has something also as corresponds to your stress levels. So if you have a very low HRV and you machine that I was talking about, then you know that you need to do something more, as he calls it, restorative, like yoga, or I don't know. Is Pilates restorative? I've never done Pilates in my life.
Or maybe meditation. Pilates can become intense depending on what you're doing. Sometimes it's relaxing, other times Pilates can be a challenge.
Okay. All right. I mean, I was a hockey player growing up, so like I never did any of this stuff. Yoga wasn't a thing. Pilates weren't a thing. But yeah, so I mean, it's a fascinating thing just to think about that. Our stress levels obviously affect us on a basis, but then the way that we work out and the types of workouts that we do can affect our stress states as well. It can either dramatically improve it, or it could actually hurt our stress states. So just listening to your body is a really interesting thing. So I think we're kind of getting to the end of the chapter here. Like, if you as your time talking about wellness and doing some of these CLE programs, do you have any tips on, or for people who are interested in starting up an exercise routine? Because I think a lot of people, they feel like they're busy. There's so many options, as we talked about, from yoga to cardio to playing basketball to tennis. I mean, there's tons of things that you could do running. But for people that are interested in just doing something to help with their stress levels, what would you recommend of a good starting point?
I think a good starting point is knowing your why. Why you're doing it. Are you doing it to relax yourself? Are you doing it to find clarity? Are you doing it to lose more? It doesn't have to be one of those things. It can be a series of those things. And choose your activities based on your why. So, for example, I mentioned that for me, I'm an intense person. So if I reach a mental block, my first inclination is to start boxing. I love boxing. It releases so much stress all at once, and it's so intense, and I really enjoy it. But if I know my mind is tired, I've been reading all day, I don't have the energy for that. So I'll do something like yoga or meditation or something more relaxed. Working on toning and want to do a full body, I'll only do workouts where I do groups all at once rather than focusing on a particular area. So I would say, begin with your why. And if it's difficult, have accountability partners. So some people like accountability as far as social media, always do that. But I'll tell one person who's good in that area. So for example, I want to train for a race, I'll reach out to her. and I'll say, hey, I'm doing this. Can you check on me periodically to see if I'm still keeping up with my routine or if I need help? So I will say reach out. Remember, you're not alone. Even though we're in COVID, we can connect with others in ways and, find people who are in those areas and learn from them. Always stretch yourself physically and intellectually, but particularly in the times we're in now where we know that stress impacts our immune system. And with everything going on, we need to be as strong as possible. I think it's very important to find something or some things that are best for your lifestyle.
No, I think those are great tips, and finding an accountability partner I think is big, and getting tips from people, and it's easier than ever to do that through social media. As I've been trying to find guests for this show and for my podcast, trying actually very hard to find an expert in a lot of these areas, and so yeah, that's great advice. What do you suggest in terms of what time to do exercise? Some people do it in the morning. Some people do it, before they go to bed. Some people do noon. Like my boss, when we were, in the office pre-COVID, he did like an afternoon, go to the gym sort of thing. He actually is a boxer. Well. So I wondered, what works for you in terms of what time to exercise?
It varies based on my schedule, but I think the best time to go is when you can give maximum output. If you can only give 30 minutes of your best time, choose a window where you can do those 30 minutes very intensely. There may be times where you normally would do evenings. Now you have a trial. You can't have time. Realistically, you won't have time for the evenings if you're on trial to do those evenings anymore. We just switch it up. So I typically look at my schedule and look ahead a week or two what I have coming up, and I don't commit to a point where it's not realistic, So understand that, we're practicing and learning every day, and don't beat yourself up. Be gentle with yourself if you miss a day. Maybe your mind and body needed that day off. Just back on it. One of the things people say, I guess, in the fitness world is never miss Monday. Because typically, if you go on Monday, you'll go on Tuesday or Wednesday. But if you miss Monday, like yourself off, man, it's Wednesday and Thursday now, I'll wait to next week. So at least try to have a day where you have to go for sure, but find a time that's conducive where you can actually be, even if it's only for a routine for the week.
No, that's great advice. And actually that dovetails right into our weekly action items. So for those of you watching for the first time, what we do here is, we give each other a challenge for the week. Last week it was eating the alphabet, so eating as many diverse foods as you can. This week's action item is to do a form of a stress-busting exercise every day. And I think, what we've talked about today, that could be a range of things. But, even as little as, like a 10-minute walk or, a game of basketball or, yoga or Pilates or whatever works for you do it, because it really does help every day. And then pay attention to how you feel afterwards, because there definitely is a moment of you can, as we've talked about, over-exercise for what your body needs, and it may much even just for your schedule, as Lakeisha talked about. If you have you're going to have a very stressful day, and spending too much time exercising is going to hurt you in the time management realm, then it probably makes sense to do less, right? But the important thing is to try to do the right type of activity that's in harmony with your life. And if you think you're close to your stress threshold, don't overdo it. Is the important thing.
And one more thing I would add here, I think that one of the silver linings, if anything, for COVID both remotely, is that we have flexibility. You may be able to do a mini walk when you, or perhaps you're racing out through traffic. Maybe you can try out more things in this period. So I would encourage our viewers to try and show during this time, because you may find out that you enjoy things that are compared.
Yeah, and again, a great segue, because the next thing we're talking about exercises you may not have. Some of these, I think, were well, indoor climbing. I've never done indoor rock climbing. Have you done anything like that, Lakeisha?
I have quite a few times.
Yeah,
actually.
that's things for like, oh, it's too high, I'm gonna fall, even though I know that I'm, strapped up. It's definitely not my favorite thing.
So when I'm looking at this program day was that I'm gonna have like a list I have to try together, starting with Ron.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah. When COVID's done, I'm gonna come to Atlanta, and you're gonna show me all of these things. So the next one,
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next one is open water swimming, which I think is like, you get in here. We have Lake Michigan. Start swimming. I'm not a really great swimmer, so that's probably not a smart move.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that one.
Okay. All right. How about Tai Chi? Have you ever done Tai Chi?
I have tried. I like that realm of martial arts and yoga and all those kind of things. So typically, I'll try most things once.
Yeah, that was all the times by me. So there's I got out of the library like these DVDs of Tai Chi tapes that I was gonna learn how to do Tai Chi because I heard it was so good, but I don't think I was like coordinated enough to. So yeah,
that was try a live class. For me, for trying new things, try like a live class. You may feel better about it, instructor in front of you.
I think, yeah, I know. I think that is part of my problem is I think like, well, I can just get something out of the library and I'll learn it all. Actually, with having a live instructor.
You can injure yourself if you don't have good form.
This is very true. All right, so the next thing that he talks about is yoga, and especially hot yoga. We've talked about that. Heat and exercise forms of stress on the body. They release beta endorphins, and you've talked about how you've enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing we talked about is jumping rope, which I found fairly interesting because, and it's actually indicative of what we were talking about, Lakeisha, because you have to be a very complicated thing. If you only have time for 10 minutes to jump rope, that actually can be just as helpful as doing something more complex if you only have 10 minutes, right?
And honestly, 10 minutes jumping rope is way more intense than you may believe. In my boxing gym, we would do 3-minute rounds of jumping rope, and I kid you not, like your calves are going to be on fire just jumping for 3 minutes straight. So 10 minutes would probably do you really good. I know in the chapter he also mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, about how your body can notice improvements in your telomeres by doing 14 minutes of workouts daily. And 14 minutes is nothing at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I mean, one of the problems that I have is that I always try to overcomplicate things. As you can see,
Yeah.
even, during the show, you know, that's just my nature. I try to do, like, I have to do it. I have to do it all. I have to, just make it so overly complicated. And, maybe the lesson that I and learned today, thanks to you, is that, to simplify things, to not overcomplicate it, because then I won't stick to it. And I think that's a good lesson we all can learn.
That, yeah, definitely. Again, holistic, because anything that you are making too complicated likely won't keep up. But I mean, like, I keep a jump rope in my house. And you can order them online as cheap as like $3. So you may want to try it out during COVID.
Yeah. No, I think it. And then the other ones that he talked about are running in nature as opposed to like running downtown. And I live in the suburbs, so we have a lot of nature by me. I don't know if you live in the city, Lakeisha, or where you do running.
It's weird. I actually enjoy nature a whole lot, and I typically choose running in nature in the fall because it's so scenic when the leaves are changing and it's really pretty. He referred to it in the chapter as grounding, which I thought was interesting because my study regarding grounding is when I try to intentionally connect with the earth. So I'll intentionally practice with my shoes off, sit in nature, and just really connect. But when he used grounding within the chapter about doing things with your body literally close to the ground. And I have read studies showing that you can increase your health by squatting, almost like in a sumo squat position. And I actually like to just like sit in squat positions. I don't know if I've done it enough to notice any remarkable differences, but I will say that there are a lot of studies that suggest that you should do things lower to the ground to help with your posture, and correct from everything else we normally do sitting in chairs all day.
Yeah, well, it's definitely anything that I can do to get out of my chair during the day, I think is helpful, because I know I do way too much sitting, just in my comfy chair. My chair at home is more comfortable than my chair in the office, so that's not a good thing, trust me.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last one that he talks about, great workouts you may not have considered, is Nordic Walking, which he does. Again, I've never seen anyone do that out by me in Naperville, but the way he describes it is like you have ski poles and you're walking with the ski poles. As watching has done that, let us know how it is. But Lakeisha, have you done a Nordic Walking at all?
I have not. The level of hiking that I've done have never required that kind of stuff, so I have not.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So, and wrapping this up, I don't know if people watching have specific questions, or if you have any good tips on. If you do, please. My wife Kathy is chimed in, and she says that people do it in Springbrook, which is a park near us, which fascinated. I've never seen it. And where Charlie runs his 5K. So my little guy does Taekwondo, and he has to do this like 10-mile run every couple of years to recertify his black belt. So I guess in that park they do Nordic Walking. That's fascinating. I'm sorry?
How old is your son?
Oh, he's 14. So he's been doing Taekwondo since he was, what, 5 or 6 years old. So he's already on his third black belt.
Yeah.
So I may be completely over exaggerating. My wife, I'm sure, will correct me on the, but it's a long walk. Like I did with him one time and I died, and he was fine. So so that tells you his level of athleticism and his the way that he can do it more than I can. So
I see a comment that mentions that she enjoys jujitsu.
oh, okay, that's great as well. I mean, like I've never done martial arts, but I can tell you that my son, he really enjoys. He enjoys not only everything about martial arts is that it is, at least Taekwondo, it's an individual sport, but also and then so in other words, like there are certain he can do by himself, and then there's like a sparring part of it where he can spar against other kids, and then there's a teamwork component where both of he can team up with somebody and they can do a um, they compete together as opposed to against each other, and then there's a leadership
Yeah.
component to where when he gets uh, and he's getting older, he can actually teach the younger kids, help teach the classes. So it's really a great. I mean, that martial, the best thing that he's done, and it's been wonderful.
Awesome.
And my wife did correct me in the comments. She said 5.5 miles.
That's still intense for a child.
Yeah, and he was probably. I mean, it was probably 5 years ago that he did the first one. Because you have a year in between your first and your second degree black belt, 2 years in between your second and third, and then 3 years for the third. So it was probably years ago and he did it when he was 10. So yeah, so about 4 or 5 years ago, exactly. That was when I almost died. Actually, yeah, yeah.
I really enjoyed that chapter was that the author said that stress doesn't take a day off. So I never thought of it that way, but that's so true. Your mind, there's going to be some in the day. The intensity of it, we don't know, but for sure it's going to happen. And for me, that framing of it really stuck with me.
Yeah, for me as well. And for the jobs that we have, and actually, part of why I started this book club on emotional intelligence skills was because of the prevalence of stress and what it's done in our profession. I mean, talking about alcoholism. We can talk about the effects of alcohol, because that was also I think mentioned in the chapter. But things that stress does to us, and as lawyers, we can on the wrong habits and continue bad habits lead to disastrous outcomes. I'm sure you've seen that in your wellness activities.
More than I can imagine, and I will say that because I am so public and transparent about certain wellness, I even get private calls, which I appreciate and receive as a great honor to be with you, but it's scary. So for me, I believe intentionality and proactive is the way to do things. And the more we talk about being well the less the stigma will be reduced. And which is why I mentioned I'm really hesitant to say don't, but do things in moderation, because having that barrier, psychologically, you can't do all of a sudden, but I please have people in your life that are trying to live healthy lifestyles, So have someone to reach out to and do about things. You won't feel so alone if you were normal to become healthy.
Yeah, and that's where where it starts, where you start out with something, and you kind of it becomes a and I think that's just where people have, and that's just it's a hard thing with so many of, so many ABA events, and I'm involved in, has turned the corner a little bit and offer, non-alcoholic drinks at some of these that's not typically a bad thing, in moderation, but it's I don't know what to say. It's a hard thing for sure.
Definitely, alcohol is a cultural thing within our industry. Different layers and reasons. I think some people are just introverted, and a lot of lawyers, for some of us, are socially awkward. Having that alcohol there lose up, and it makes it easier, but you just can't rely on that. So one way that my friends and I sometimes will say, hey, let's meet for smoothies, or hey, let's meet for Pilates, or we intentionally do things that are at least wellness based. Now, there are times we'll just say, hey, let's meet for brunch, but you don't want everything that you do to be related to some vice, of any kind.
Yeah, no, exactly. Okay, well, this has been extremely helpful for me. I really appreciate you, taking the time, Keisha. If you could do me a favor and let the audience know if you do either a firm or social media, what would be the best fit with you?
Sure. So my law firm is the Randall Firm, and I can be reached on Facebook as the Randall Firm, or on Instagram is lrandall.law. So that's LRANDALL.law. And my coaching practice, which is available to anyone, not just lawyers, and because it's virtual, it can. That is the Atlanta Coach, and on Instagram it's the Atlanta Coach, and also my website is theatlantacoach.com. And there I talk to people, get through a range of things, anything as private as personal, with professionals, like get through mental blocks in order to advance professional.
Excellent. Well, thank you again so much. Next week, we are going to have another expert on, Robin Wolpert, who's a Minnesota attorney and member of the National Task Force on Lean. She's going to come in. I asked her a few days ago. She seemed really amazing. She's going to talk about, specifically in conjunction with Chapter, which is to reset. So join us again next week, 7 p.m. Central on Wednesday. Right here, wherever you're watching it, is where I will be with Robin. So, Lakeisha, again, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me, Dave. I really appreciate it.
And remember, as we sign off, emotional intelligence is necessary for all lawyers, and we can learn